Here we go. Okay. Welcome everyone to the House District 65 Democratic Primary Forum. With us tonight are Matthew Dawson and Shoppell, two candidates who will be on the ballot on September 13th. We're going to follow a familiar format. Each candidate is going to have a 1-minute opening statement. We're going to have a series of 6 to 8 questions where they each get to answer the same question for a minute. And then we're going to have a series of wild cards where they can go back and forth, or they can lengthen their answer if they choose. I'm moderator Scott Pickering from the East Bay Media Group, and I'm here with volunteers from the League of Women Voters who are going to help us keep track of the time and keep track of the use of those wild cards. All right, we're going to start with our opening statement. Mr. Dawson, you can take us away.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having me on, which I know everybody says, but as a trial attorney, I'm a bit of a junkie on debates, and I recognize that the League of Women Voters does this often, and I do appreciate it. I am running for representative in District 65 to take over for Greg Amore. Greg, I'm very fortunate to have his endorsement, and it was Greg who spoke to me about potentially running. It's not something I ever thought I would do. I appreciate the hard work he's done, and I urge everybody to support him. And obviously, he's going to the next leagues with his run for Secretary of State. I'm from East Providence. Many of you know me. I'm walking door to door and seeing old friends. I used to pump gas at the Shell station on Warren Avenue, and I used to slice deli meat at Schroeder's Delicatessen, among other jobs. I was also a prosecutor in the Attorney General's office for more than 2 decades, and a attorney in private practice for the last 10 years. Over the course of these questions, I want to introduce myself to you and talk about values.
Thank you. Shoppell?
Am I unmuted? Yes. Okay.
You are.
Hi, thank you to the organizers and the viewers who are taking time to educate themselves about the candidates and the issues. I'm Shoppell, and I'm running for House District 65 to represent you of East Providence. I'm a working class person, and these experiences I've gained through my life qualify me for this office. I've been a caregiver, a substitute teacher, a worker and organizer for community-based nonprofits, and a small business owner. I've been politically active all my life. In the 80s, I was active about women's rights for equal pay for equal work and protecting Roe versus Wade. I protested to raise awareness for AIDS and HIV crisis and the dire need to action. Most recently, I've been involved with the Women's Project for fighting for the Reproductive Privacy Act, testifying and supporting community outreach and education. I remember back, they said, oh, well, you're being hysterical. And I'm like, well, I think the writing's on the wall here, people. And here I am still fighting again. I understand the legislative process. I've been fighting for bills, moving them forward, working in community sponsorships, and providing personal testimony. I come from a place of community advocacy and activism. I know it's hard work. I will listen, I will organize, and I'm a proud citizen of Riverside. I chose to live here, and I'm happy to represent the people of Riverside and East Providence. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start with questions with Mr. Dawson. Some of the questions will be familiar to you, having listened to the previous forum. Some will not. So you're gonna have to think on your feet, perhaps. All right. If elected, what are your top priorities that you will introduce and push in the coming legislative session?
We have a host of, I've walked around quite a bit, and there are a host of really a dozen or more issues that affect the citizens of District 65. But I just want to, my thought, you're asking what my priorities are. Obviously, it's housing. Obviously, it's protecting Roe v. Wade. It's obviously gun safety. But I just want to talk about the type of legislator I think I'll be. As a trial attorney who's tried literally hundreds of cases over many years, part of the job is to anticipate problems. And I've never done this before running for office. And one of the things that always bothers me is we know problems are coming and nobody does anything about it until they hit, and then we have to deal with it. Here's a problem that you haven't thought of. I happen to own an electric car. I got that during the pandemic It runs very well. It's got a small battery. We have no infrastructure for electric cars. In the next 6 months, in the next few years, there's going to be an avalanche of electric cars in this state. We don't have the infrastructure or the charging stations to support that. We need to do something about that immediately and get ready.
Thank you. I'm sorry, same question to San Shoppell.
Housing, affordable housing, both for young families and for seniors in our community and across Rhode Island, is at crisis levels. We need to work for building greenhouses that are also going to require an infrastructure system, like Mr. Dawson said. And we will need to work toward improving our infrastructure, but the housing issue will also help alleviate some of our economic burden of people needing jobs. And I think that one of the issues is that having housing for seniors in our community, where they can stay in their community, not away from their church or their friends and family that can still visit them, is important to consider about when we talk about sensible development in East Providence. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next question. We'll switch the order. Ms. Shoppell, we'll begin with you. I suspect I know how you're going to answer this one, but we'll we ask them anyway. Do you support the woman's right to choose her reproductive health care, including the right to have an abortion? Also, do you support the Equality in Abortion Act, which would remove Rhode Island laws that prohibit insurance plans for state employees and Medicaid recipients from including abortion coverage in their state-issued insurance plans?
Absolutely resounding yes, yes, yes. I fought for the Reproductive Privacy Act, and that's the codifying of Roe versus Wade. I've been fighting for women's rights my entire life, even as a young teenager. And I have been fighting for the passage of the EACA, and it's been 2 years. I'm disappointed that it didn't pass last year with all the what's coming out of the Supreme Court justice, and I will certainly fight for that, because abortion is healthcare, and it's not just abortion, but it's also IV access to reproductive products and feminine products also. These are all inclusive things that women need, that women deserve as part of their rights as full-fledged citizens of our country.
Mr. Dawson.
I agree. The decision recently handed down by the Supreme Court, I took the time to read the entire thing, and it's awful. It's an abdication of their responsibilities by the Supreme Court. Now, we're not here to talk about that. We certainly can't do anything about that in the Rhode Island legislature. But I do support the EPAC, and for a number of reasons. Most importantly, I think in light of the Dobbs case and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I just think we need to send women a message that we support your reproductive freedom, and in a serious way. I also think Rhode Island needs to be a beacon around the country for other states to see this is how you're supposed to do things. You look at a state like Kansas, which I would argue would probably be considered to be a bit to the right and conservative. 60% of their citizens voted in favor of legalizing abortion. What do you think Rhode Island's at? I'd bet 85 to 90. This is what the people want, and this is what we have to support without question.
Thank you. New question. Mr. Dawson, beginning with you. Do you believe charter schools have a positive or negative impact on public education in Rhode Island? And depending on your answer, would you support the expansion of charter schools in the state?
I wouldn't give you a broad answer on that. It depends on the community. I believe there are 18 charter schools in the state, and many of them are doing very well. When I was a prosecutor with the Attorney General's office, they sent us over there, and I've been involved in both Law Day and judging different art competitions and such, and they do a real good job. A city like Providence needs charter schools. I understand that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, here for East Providence, we have no need for that. That would be ridiculous. We just built a $200 million high school, which I consider to be a palace compared to the one I went to high school in. It really is a tribute to Greg Amore and Brianna Henrys and Val Lawson and Catherine Kazarian that we got that much money. We should all be very proud. Certainly not appropriate here. I would say limited. I would also say that I'm not really in favor of diverting any public funds from public education.
Okay, you can continue if you want to finish that thought, or you can.
Yeah, that's
you can
okay.
hold it.
I don't
All
want
right,
to hold on.
all right, San Chappelle, same question.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Yeah. Do you believe charter schools have a positive or negative impact on public education in Rhode Island? Depending on your answer, would you support the expansion of charter schools in the state?
I would say that there are a few charter schools that have added to the system, but I do not support expansion of charter schools. Charter schools pull necessary funding away from the system. And I also feel like part of the issue of the educational system is it's not an equitable system if everybody doesn't get quality education. And that should not rest on the backs of a wealth-driven, tax-based community. So education, equitable education is deserved by all citizens of Rhode Island. And pulling money away from this system into charter schools does not support a better public school system for all of Rhode Island.
All right,
I
thank
want to jump in. Well,
Yeah.
I'll jump a little bit, add a little bit. I talked earlier about my desire to anticipate problems. Here's the problem. We're about to have a serious teacher shortage in this state. There's no question about that. It's hit down south. This is the South County a little bit. Hasn't hit us that hard here in East Providence, but it is coming. We need to get involved right from the jump and getting young people that want to be teachers, helping them with their education through payments, and also taking care of our teachers who have probably burned out over the past 2 years due to the COVID pandemic.
Thank you. Yeah, go right ahead.
I would respond that, yes, we need to support our teachers. We need to support that increased pay, also supporting the idea that you teach me, you look like me is also important. I'm sorry if that doesn't come off very well, but I look like you, you teach me, and we learn together. And also that we need to afford engage people in becoming teachers and making it a profession that people respect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, new question. Ms. Shoppell, we'll start with you. Do you support a ban on the sale and ownership of assault weapons? Would you push for any changes to current Rhode Island gun laws?
I believe that there is no necessary need for citizens to own military style issue weapons for mass killing. And if we are going to institute laws that would make people felonies for owning such a thing, we need to have a buyback program, because otherwise we're just feeding them back into the system for somebody else to buy. We also need to close the loophole of gun shows. We also need to expand the wait period for getting licensed, and some of the things that we have done within our state have been really great. Straw gun purchases, red flag, reducing magazine capacities, raising the age at which somebody can get a permit. These are all things that we are working to finally make a better place, a safer community in Rhode Island.
Thank you. Mr. Dawson, same question.
Well, this is an area where I have a unique amount of experience. That the Providence County Gun Court started in 1994. Judge John Borsia was the judge, and I was sitting in court that day. I was the chief of narcotics and organized crime unit in the Attorney General's office for many years, and I was deputy chief of the criminal division for the last 6 I was there. And what that entails, and I don't talk about this much, was when homicides happen, I went to the scene, including here in East Providence at least 3 times. I've seen it firsthand as to what damage gun violence can do. Yes, Rhode Island's moving in the right direction, but this is common sense stuff. And I think we need an overhaul how we look at guns from top to bottom. And I also think people in the NRA and people that are pro-gun need to come to the table and participate in this. It's over. The technology of that in weapons has outgrown the Second Amendment. My opponent is correct. We can't have assault weapons. There's no reason for you to have a military style weapon in your home.
Thank you. All right, new question. Mr. Dawson, we'll begin with you. This is actually 2 related but slightly different thoughts, and you can having to do with business, and you can answer both sides of it or pick one. What measures would you support to create incentives for businesses to locate in Rhode Island rather than in neighboring states? Secondly, how can the legislature help existing small businesses?
This is absolutely the focus of my work when I get up to the legislature. We live in a regional economy. We are in competition. They're nice people, but Massachusetts and Connecticut are our direct competition. We have got to incentivize businesses to come here, and it's not all money. First, we need to have a highly educated workforce. Right now, we have a labor force. We don't have enough labor. We also have to have specialized trainings for those folks. And getting back to issues we all agree on, we also have to have affordable housing. For a company to come here in Rhode Island, your employees got to live somewhere. It's crucial to what they're doing. Beyond that, getting into small business, I've represented many small businesses, helped them set up. I do own my own as well. Many areas of government have really streamlined. Others have not. We need to work on that.
Shoppell, same question.
Rhode Island is an incredibly beautiful state that has so much to offer, and we need to sell that as part of the reason why people would relocate here for a small business and not leave their to go over the border to Connecticut and Massachusetts. We definitely need to make it a business-friendly state with reduction of paperwork and the taxing systems. We also need to be sure that we have properly vocationally trained employable people, and we certainly need to increase that. College isn't for everyone, and sometimes vocational training is the key to getting people into a job that's well paying. We also have to make affordable housing available, and if we also increase our minimum wage basis, we can bring up our community together by working in small businesses.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to 2 points. First point is, I get back to that concept I discussed. We do have a labor shortage. I think everybody can't go anywhere without seeing a help wanted sign somewhere. I do support also government assisted and subsidized affordable daycare. Mothers, fathers who have child responsibilities have got to get back into the workforce. It's very difficult, and I understand that. I paid for daycare myself and my 2 daughters for many years. It's quite expensive, but we've got to help people in that regard to get them back into the workforce. Key component to how we're going to help our economy.
Thank you.
I would certainly agree with the issue of childcare, but I also think that what we need to add to that is that everybody should have access to pre-K education that's not lottery driven. And in the process of that type of thing, we also are going to need qualified teachers and educators to work within those fields. So yes, daycare is a thing, but also we need to make sure those people are being paid appropriately, have the health insurance and the security of having the protection and the support of our state to move forward.
Thank you. All right, new question. Ms. Shoppell, we start with you. And we just touched on this briefly, housing, but we'll go a little bit deeper on the topic. Affordable housing remains a major problem in Rhode Island. What measures would you support to either control housing costs or create more affordable housing, or both?
We definitely need to increase our affordable housing stock, but we also need to take back the word affordable. It's been completely co-opted. When I see an ad that says affordable housing, income base 85,000, who makes 85,000 that would consider that affordable housing? We also need to be building housing that people are not paying more than 20% of their income. So, and also these housings need to be mixed generational, not just young people or seniors, but communities that live together. We also need to consider the idea that access to public transportation is key to where these communities are located. And I'm not just speaking about East Providence, I'm speaking of Rhode Island altogether. The idea that these new houses need to be with sound green construction, with labor choices. But I think another thing that we need to do is that I'm really frustrated about how many tax breaks some of these developments are getting for coming and bringing their work, their building and their constructions here. However, we strongly really need to make it that if they do not build affordable housing within the units that they have got the tax breaks for, that they are fined enough to make it not worth making it happen. They cannot get off on an easy fine.
Mr. Dawson.
Well, obviously, the housing situation is crisis level. I've got a daughter that just graduated from college. There's no chance she's staying here in Rhode Island. She's got a job elsewhere anyway, but she wouldn't be able to afford anything. So it's a very complex issue. There's 1,000 different things that have to be done. Obviously, the legislature, when we had some money last year due to the federal funding, dedicated $230 million, but we got to watch that closely to see how that's used. We also, to have an immediate effect, I think we got to really take a hard look at zoning laws in each community. Now, before anyone freaks out, I recognize that there's already a lot of houses in East Providence, and I'm not asking for a skyscraper apartment to go up next to the water tower. But the idea of adding in-law apartments, which someone in my family did, or a multifamily home that fits with the character of the community, is certainly something we need to address now. We need to really widen our horizons when it comes to building and supporting housing.
Right. Yes, please.
I do agree with controlling urban sprawl, and we also have to, with the impact of East Providence, that the external dwelling unit, I'm not using the right term, is something that we possibly could do here. And also not giving incentive to building multiple family homes, not just single dwelling homes, and changing the zoning laws that are affecting those kind of developments in our city and across the state.
Okay, great. We have 2 more questions through this part of the program. Mr. Dawson, we begin this one with you. The Rhode Island Supreme Court has dismissed challenges to the current public education funding formula, saying that any formula changes are up to the General Assembly. Do you support amending the Rhode Island Constitution to assure that the court would rule on whether the formula is adequate and equitable? Why or why not?
This is an issue that I think everybody should get behind. And as I say, I've had occasion to visit high schools around the country when I was around the state, rather, when I was a prosecutor, and it's obviously not fair. There's really no other way to put that. If you're in Barrington, you've got a certain lifestyle. If you're in Providence, you've got another. It's not fair. I would so wholeheartedly support that. But I also think, is keeping it close to home. I really want to reiterate the thanks that we all need to give to our legislatures and the city council and school committee at the time. And I don't want to start naming names, but here in East Providence, we've done very well. It broke my heart when to read how the East Providence High School had fallen apart in 2017. And the fact that Greg Amore and others were able to get that done really is part of the reason I've decided to run, because it just overjoyed at how well they've done. as far as other communities go, we all got to be treated equal. We have to be fair.
Ms. Shoppell.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, I knew you'd want me to do that. It's a really long one.
It was a long one.
I didn't write it, but it is lengthy. So the Rhode Island Supreme Court has dismissed challenges to the current public education funding formula, saying that formula changes are up to the General Assembly. So it's the General Assembly's purview. Do you support amending the Rhode Island Constitution to assure that the court would rule on whether the formula is adequate and equitable? Why or why not?
It's like a big question, and I'm just going to call out the fact that our states around us have a constitutional right to education. And we did not pass this, which ensures an equitable education accessible to all Rhode Islanders. So part of that problem was it didn't come before our House. It was passed in the Senate, but it didn't go into the House because our House leader did not choose to bring this to the floor. That would be Joe Shekarchi, and I don't feel like that was a very good choice. And I'm having issues with the fact that we know we have struggling education systems throughout the state of Rhode Island. And it is going to be on the back of the legislature to do something about this. And I would support a constitutional amendment to the right of equitable education.
Thank you. All right, last question. San Shoppell, we begin with you. Should bonds passed by the public for a specific purpose, such as affordable housing, be allowed to be diverted for other uses, such as a new stadium in Pawtucket? Would you work for more transparency in budget allocations?
Bonds passed for what they are specifically for, whether it's affordable housing, education, protection of green spaces, they are for what the people voted for them for. Certainly not moving them for stadiums, certainly not moving them for luxury condominiums, certainly not changing that. We need to regain the trust of the public, and transparency is absolutely imperatively so important to make sure that people understand what they're signing on for, whose hands are in whose pockets. And if it comes to light that something has not been transparent, we need to demand transparency.
Mr. Dawson.
I agree that when a bond is voted on, the citizens are voting for a specific thing. It has to stay within that thing. I believe it's probably illegal not to do so. I don't have any opinion as to what has happened with the Tidewater landing. I wasn't there, and I'm not as astute on it as I should be, but I believe it's a done deal. And so at this point, I just get a little bit tired of folks second guessing throughout and almost wishing that it fails. We need it to work. We're going to have to support that, and also going to have to make sure that they do come through on the housing that they promise. We have to make sure that happens. No doubt about that.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our question and answer period. We're going to move to closing statements. Mr. Dawson, you're going to go first. I'm going to add, I'll do the same thing. I'll add a minute of time to each person's allotted time. So in Mr. Dawson's case, that means that you used one less wild card. So you could have up to 2 minutes.
You shouldn't have said that.
For your closing remarks. No, your voice is, it's melodic, so we're happy to listen for up to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
All right. There are lots of issues in this state, in this city, rather. I've walked from door to door, trying my best. I've decided in this campaign, it may have been a mistake to try to do all the doors myself. I didn't hire any canvassers to go in and give you a bunch of literature. I'm trying to meet everybody. I'm not going to make it. It's just 10,000 registered voters in this city, and the ones I'm trying to see, I do my best, but I tend to be a little long-winded, and I like to listen to see what people have to say. And what they're saying is they're concerned about a number of issues in this city. Number one, every time gets back to James Carville and Bill Clinton, the economy. People want to see the economy busting. and they want to see people working, and they want to see the government helping people. There are 37,000 small businesses. And I think many times when people talk about tax structure, they want to tax people and businesses. These are small businesses. They're micro businesses with 2 and 3 employees. They're very difficult to get by. We need to support things like that, particularly here in East Providence. We also, now most of this is a lot of this is city work and the things that the city government has to do. But I've been waiting 50 years for the waterfront down there to be developed. I go to Warren and Bristol. Warren's taken off. Bristol's for a while had a number of nice restaurants and businesses down by the water. We've built the infrastructure. We need to work hard to get moving forward on that. When it comes down to the end of this debate, and when you're thinking about who to vote for, I will suggest to you this. Ms. Shoppell and I are remarkably similar. I have a lot of progressive beliefs that are the same as her. I'm probably a little more into the economy than her and her folks are, but there's a skill set that goes into having these jobs. When I was a young man, I used to sit in court and watch people work, and I used to think, oh, that's easy. You can get up there and stand up there and talk. That's easy. And then I had to do it. It's not easy. And it's the same thing to be a legislator. You have to have experience. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to forge compromise and get things done. And I will for you.
Thank you. Ms. Shoppell, you have up to 1.5 minutes of time.
I think you can see that I'm advocating for change, and together we can make this happen. And I'm fighting for the change which will raise the quality of life for all of us, both in East Providence and across the state. I'm running for a better future for Rhode Islanders. I'm running for a greener economy, moving away from our dependence on fossil fuel and fighting with climate action legislation. We do have the Act on Climate Change, but we need to make it move quicker and hold them accountable. I'm running for a just economy, rent stabilizing, increasing minimum wage, equitable education, not depending on community wealth and taxes, inclusive community where civil liberties are protected for women, LGBTQ+, and persons with disabilities, where our health is an all-inclusive access, complete body coverage, mental, dental, vision, and hearing, where our communities are safe for our seniors and immigrants and people of color. This is all across our state. We are working toward a whole new government. I will bring a voice of the community to the State House, making sure that I fight for the changes for the better future of Rhode Island, vocational training, jobs, so that we can thrive. And the idea is that together we can make Rhode Island better. I thank you for your time and ask for your vote in the primary on September 13th. And as it was noted, you can vote early starting August 24th.
Great. All right. Thank you both. Susan, I'm gonna say goodbye for the evening. Susan, why don't you take us home?
Okay, thanks to everybody for a great couple of forums here. I think it really helped the citizens get a hold on what's going on here and what you guys stand for. And you all sound like you'd be great. So it's going to be a hard choice. We are holding forums for Senate District 18 and for the mayor of East Providence on August 31st. So you can again watch using the Zoom address on the www.LWVRI.org website, or the League of Women Voters website. You, as Senator Shoppell said, you can start voting early, and you can do it by mail. There's a drop box available. And of course, you can always vote in the traditional way on September 13th. We thank all of our candidates for their participation. We thank Scott from the East Bay Media Group for all of their support with the technology, as well as moderating so well. And thanks to the league members who generously volunteer many hours to organize and present these forums. We'd love to have help from the citizens of East Providence if they would like to help us put together forums in the future. So in the meantime, be sure to cast your vote. And good night.